for, watching the whole meeting. One thing I wanted to say is there was so much information presented last time, and I think Chad did a good job of capturing it. When I read over the minutes, it was a little confusing to know what Erin said and what we sort of asked her and what was in the regulations and what are things that Erin said, this is something that could be done. Which I think is fine for the minutes. We have it recorded and, but I was wondering if in the future we might want to do an action list, especially because we're getting really close to having to write the plan. And so if you wouldn't mind, Chad, and if afterwards, if you want to just, if you want to ask, I'm happy to talk about it, but just to sort of write, here are our next steps. And
Sure.
So like when Erin suggested some of the things she suggested, it could be, like this is a possible suggestion of what we could do. Otherwise, I really do thank you for going above and beyond and watching the meeting again.
Yeah, no problem.
So with that, I guess I would move to approve the minutes as is. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the minutes from January 21st are approved. I wanted to just make sure that everyone at this point got the second survey link. And I don't know at this point, Rachel or Heather, who are those results? Are they coming back to you?
So I would say
They're on our SurveyMonkey account.
Yeah, I can check right now.
So yeah, I have it open. We've gotten like almost 900 responses. It's pretty extraordinary.
Wow, great.
Wow.
But
Wow.
you know,
I'm sorry. Wait, no.
Oh. Whoops.
Let me just
No,
ask.
almost
that you're not-
700, almost 700, which is still pretty awesome.
That's great. Let me just ask, if you're not talking, if you could mute, I appreciate it. You said almost 700, that's great.
Yeah. That's an upside down 9.
For those of us who haven't yet sent it out to our contacts, and I'm going to be honest and say I'm really sorry I haven't sent it out to contacts yet. If you're able to do that this week, that would be great. I think, did we say that the closing date for that would be the middle of February?
I think we estimated to have that, yes, open for a couple of weeks. We could plan to have results for our next meeting then on the 18th, if that's helpful.
Sure, yeah. And Erin, did that go, or Heather, that went out in all the regular, like whatever it was sent out for the
Yes.
SCROG was sent out? Great, okay. So maybe, I don't know if it's possible to do one more send, probably not this week, but next week, just to say we're closing the survey if you didn't get a chance, that kind of thing.
We could probably ask Peggy to put it in her weekly it's not every week, but every other week she does an update. So she could do that as a reminder also in her calls
If you would,
to let people know.
if you would do that, that would be great. I know she had offered to do that, and I
Well,
thought
she did do it. She did do it last Friday, letting people know that it was going to be released on Monday. So that was, she had 2 notifications last Friday, one in advance of the storm for emergency preparedness, and then a regular town update. And in the town update call, she did mention that. I drafted a little something for her to
Okay,
read.
I'm happy to hear that. I unfortunately, we only got the storm one over here. I don't know why we didn't get, but other people got that.
Are you signed up for both? So when you go into the town's website, you have to check off what kind of notifications you're looking to receive. So if it was just a townwide update, you may not have, because it wasn't part of the emergency broadcast. So that could have been a difference, but
I'll go check, but did others hear the message?
I didn't get it. Maybe I'm not signed up for it either.
Okay. Did anyone
Okay.
hear it?
No.
I'm not
Nobody.
signed up.
I did.
Al Goldberg heard it.
Oh, Jesus, good.
Peter, you didn't hear it either? And
I might have, but it goes to our other phone. And so I had
Fine,
done
okay,
the
fine.
survey, so I wasn't thinking about it, to tell you the
listen,
truth.
if Al Goldberg heard it, we're set.
So I have a question, John,
He's
on the
really an
survey.
outsider, so he would just.
Is there a way to, can people do the survey more than once? Is there a way to screen that out?
You can do it once from each outgoing URL. So if like on your
Okay.
phone or on your home computer, only one response per.
Okay, so I can walk in and use my wife's computer and do it again, theoretically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we talk about, Aaron, did you talk about the source at some point? Either getting a story done on the survey itself or inserting it? I can't
Actually,
remember.
We
I
did.
have a contact who, and maybe Sarah, I could pass that along, Sue Braden from the Register, Shoreline Times. She had reached out to me. She's kind of covering regionally some affordable housing. Not just affordable housing developments, but generally how municipalities are handling their plan writing. I've seen a couple articles from Branford as well, and what they're doing. I'm happy to, I was gonna give her a call back also to see if she had questions specifically for applications that we've received. But if you wanted, I'm happy to either pass along her information or give her your contact.
No, if you
want
know
to
her, I
talk-
mean, I'm thinking about just getting at least a story in the source or some like publication with the URL is all we need. I think that would help a lot. Instead of, I think Aaron D had talked about inserting it into the source at some point. That's too late, most likely. but
Well,
the
so the
story-
deadline is Wednesday for the following week. So
Right.
if we got it in this week, it wouldn't come out until the following Thursday, which, what's the date there?
Right, we've missed it for next week for this survey. You're right,
So maybe, Aaron,
we
what
could
about
leave it
a-
It would
open.
come out the 17th,
right.
but maybe it would come out sooner on, I don't know if it would come out sooner on the Zip 06.
I wonder if you
I
could
can-
just do an online, Aaron, do you know? If they'll just do it,
That's what I'm saying, yeah. The Zip
yeah, through
06.
their online publication instead of just paper.
I don't know. I can reach out. I'll reach out to Brian Boyd, the editor, today and see what we can do with the
Yeah,
deadline of the 18th.
Aaron,
at least a story in next week's paper would be at least something.
Yeah,
I don't know if
That
we'll
might be
make
a-
that for next.
that might be a
week.
little ambitious, but what about, do we want, let's say if we couldn't get it in about the survey, would you be interested in doing an article
Sure.
about another topic?
well, we could do the survey results.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if you're able to try to get the survey in anywhere, I think it would be worth it to extend the deadline. We certainly could extend the deadline a week
right,
of the
okay.
survey. So why don't you, if you would follow that path, that'd be great. And then,
Yep.
yes, I think an article, I mean, look, if they want to do an article about the survey, great. But if not, then I think the survey results and the SCROG results, I mean, I think that would be a good,
Yeah,
getting the
no,
word
that
out
would be
there.
good. Okay.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for pointing that out. And yes, Matt, we had talked at one point about paying to put the whole survey in, and then it just didn't
Oh, right.
seem worth it after, and maybe we just ran out of time, truthfully. Okay, so with that, I want to go on to, we have sort of a lot today, and I really thank you, Erin, for passing out these very thoughtful recommendations. I don't know if people were able to look through the recommendations. That's not next on the list, but I just wanted to point out that we have a list of recommendations. And as I read them over, I'm not sure if we'll get through them all today, because I think actually there's probably things to talk about within the recommendations. But before we go to any of that, I know Aaron gave us a presentation last week on zoning regulations, and there was a lot in there. Oh, I know what I wanted to say about the minutes. I was hoping also that we could just attach Aaron's, any handouts we have for the meeting, if we could attach that to the minutes, so people could see the zoning regulations that she had passed out. I didn't know if there was so much there. I don't know if people had follow-up questions or comments, but we wanted to give an opportunity for that. First, we're talking to Aaron. This isn't about the narrative that Rachel and John did. So follow-up questions or thoughts?
Sorry, Sarah, you're talking about the recommendations? Is that correct?
No, right now, I was just trying to make it clear for this discussion that I'm trying to save some time for the recommendations. But right now we're talking about what Aaron presented
Okay,
at
got it.
our
All right.
last meeting. Yeah. And whether you have questions or thoughts or.
So that section is definitely the plan of conservation and development analysis, as well as the zoning regulations. Those are, yes, the zoning regs are a little more detailed. The plan of conservation and development is a broader goals and policies. Yes, those papers.
Yeah.
And so I think when we get into our recommendations as well, we'll kind of look at the recommendations may not all be very specific. For example, of recommending what the particular wording of a zoning regulation should be. I think it's more of a general policy of, if we find an area such as, for example, multifamily is encouraged only in Madison Center. So perhaps the commission or the committee would look at that in a broader sense and say we would encourage the Planning and Zoning Commission to look at their regulations to perhaps encourage multifamily in this particular area of town as well. So more of a broader sense, and then those, based on those recommendations, the Planning and Zoning Commission gets into the nitty-gritty wording and trying to look at their zoning map. So I wasn't trying to, it wasn't my goal to overwhelm you with technical information of the zoning regulations, but just at least to put that information out there to include in our plan of all these different mechanisms that we have for housing in town, and to use that as a starting point of where we would like to move forward. See if any of these through the observations really could be hindering housing diversity or affordable housing in general. So that's, does that help kind of lessen the worry of reviewing each zoning section, I guess, in more detail, Sarah?
I think from my point of view, there's so much to know. It's like we could take, a year class on that and not know it all. So I felt like it was an overview that maybe the reason you're not getting follow-up questions is because it's, like we don't even know what to ask. But I will say that looking at the recommendations, I felt like that's in conjunction with the zoning, that's very helpful. So we know what we have and what we don't. And so if there aren't questions, I think let's put it aside. Let's keep it as a reference. And my guess is that in a month or so, as we look back at things, it might be helpful. But knowing that we have a plan that's due in June, I think that's fine to just put that aside for now. And so thank you for doing that. And I think you're sort of be doing it again when we talk about the recommendations.
Sarah,
Yeah,
I would
please,
just say that some of that work that Aaron did maybe can be part of an appendix of our plan to just, general background information.
Process, then go through wetlands.
I would suggest that actually should be part of the plan itself, because
Perhaps,
this is a
that's
5-year
fine
plan.
too,
That's,
absolutely.
this is an analysis of where Madison is right now with their regulations, and then that provides, I think, a nice flow into the recommendations.
Yeah.
Right. I think when reading through the narrative that Rachel and John had kind of structured, there are places to plug in additional information following the introduction. And so that's where those analyses would go.
Yeah, I guess once we see it, we'll know better. I will say, looking at some of the plans that John has done, some of it's about making it accessible so that people can sit down and read it. So, but yeah. So I think with that, maybe we should turn to the narrative. And I know, John and Rachel, you really didn't get a chance to present last time. And I'm just so we're all clear, is this would this be the beginning of the, like, is this the beginning of the plan? And we would expect graphs and pictures, or is this to be edited for the beginning of the plan? Can you, what's your idea?
Obviously, if anybody has
Yeah.
questions or things that
This is,
you
I mean,
address, you guys are all-
The answer is both. I think this is intended to be the basically the words that are in the beginning part of the plan. Obviously, yes, we want it edited. We'll add graphics, we'll add pictures, and we'll lay it out nicely. But this is sort of for your review and commentary before we start doing some serious like layout and things like that.
Okay, so with that in mind, Rachel and John, is there anything you want to highlight to us or you want to hear from us about, or should we just open it to comment? I'm sure you don't want editing over this meeting. So how would you like to proceed?
Well, I would say, first, sort of a broad impression, like, does this take the right tone and provide the right level of information? And then, if there are, specific questions or edits, we could do those via like a markup version of Word or something like that later. But just, are we on the right track is the basic question.
So John, I guess my impression would be, and I'm not sure I'm going to say this right, but when I look at what you did with Old Saybrook as kind of a template, I guess this is just one person's opinion only, but that's, I guess, what I envision us trying to do as you sort of build the story. What is affordable housing? Where do we stand, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe this fits in there perfectly, but I just know that at least for me, I really think that the Old Saybrook template is really good. And I we don't have, if we're saying we're like Old Saybrook, that's fine. I don't really care. I really think the content is what really matters more.
How is that different than what they did here, Peter?
Well, you'd have to look at it, but it is different.
Yeah.
The information is the same, but the way that's being presented is different.
So we met with.
Well,
seems like
I have to pull up the Old Saybrook one. We've done a few at this point, but the only thing I know for sure about Old Saybrook is that it's landscape oriented rather than portrait oriented, but which does change what a person's experience of it. But okay, we may want to drill down on what it is about Old Saybrook that.
You mean like the order of the sections in Old Saybrook, like how it introduces affordable housing like in its own section?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm sorry, Peter, if you're checking that, or if you're, do you know that, did you hear that as a question?
Sorry?
Did you mean that like if with Old Saybrook, like that affordable housing is introduced in its own section, like the way that the sections are organized in it?
Yeah, I mean, I like the format of it just because it sort of leads the reader to sort of build, to where it'll ultimately lead to the conclusions. And I see that there's a lot of similarities in it. I just think, maybe I'm just looking at this the wrong way, but I like how you build the story here.
Yeah.
What is affordable housing? How did we get here? What is the current situation in Madison in this case? And then so on and so forth.
Gotcha.
So can I ask a question about content? So the data that was used for this is 2019 data, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So when you say things like the next 3 years, that basically is
No.
like if you say expected to grow in the next 3 years. That's basically where we are now, right?
Like what are you referring to specifically?
trying to
Because
find
there
it.
is a little bit, there's a couple points that I think are taken from like 2020, like different projections.
I'll have to find it, but
I think it's like,
What-
you know, I think, Aaron, maybe you're talking about, it says Madison's current demographics, infrastructure and other trends. So you're talking about the current demographics.
Mhm.
And
That's
then
the section I'm looking
some
at. yeah.
charts that are showing some projections into the future. And we did discuss this at a prior meeting, how the 2019 data is not that helpful anymore. And it's worth it to sort of look at where we are today. You have, you know, things about what's going to happen to the different age groups. So I think that's what you're talking about, Aaron, is that
Well, when we look at the recommendations later, we have to pair it up with what the needs are. And so I'm just trying to figure out how we make that clear. So, and when I read this, I'm not, so like, so the 65 plus is expecting to increase, but 40 to 64 is expecting to decrease.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it's just because the 45 to 55 or whatever age group is simply just aging into that in the next like decade or two, you know. So becoming smaller.
And nobody's replacing the 40 to 60 year olds?
Right. Like I think the group below them is a little bit smaller.
Okay.
I'm not aging into the 60-year-old group, by the way.
You're refusing?
Speak,
not in the next 3 years, you know.
speak for yourselves.
Yeah, no, really.
Okay. So then we're basically identifying a need in the senior population and a need in the people with school age children. Is that
Yeah.
the takeaway from this current
Yeah,
demographic?
I would say so, yeah.
So should we say that somewhere?
Yeah, we could make like a more of a takeaway section so we're clear about like what we're saying when we're talking about statistics. That would be good.
Like at the end of the section, maybe
Yeah.
some bullets.
I think that would be the best way to make it clear, don't you?
If
Pull
I
out,
could,
yeah.
Aaron, I wonder if you're reacting to something that I was reacting to, which is you have graphs and then you have sort of sentence by sentence explaining the graphs. And maybe that's what Peter's saying about when you look at some of the plans. I think it's hard for the average reader to follow that, as opposed to the general, you know, you have the graph here and then you explain in sort of plain English, not what the graph says verbatim, but the general, what you have taken away from it. This is a lot like this group is going up and this group is going down and this, and so, you know, a general overall something. I think also, you know, the plans that you've done in Essex and Old Saybrook are great. And the one thing that would be helpful is a little bit of Madison. And so what I mean by that is recently, very recently, Madison citizens have been told the population is declining. It's declining so much that we need to close a school. And then we closed a school. So now the population's changing slightly. I think there needs to just be some 1 or 2 sentences about this is what we thought about Madison. This is what's happening now. Similarly, where you say we have 1.2% or 1.4% stock, I think you could really drive it home with some more Madison specifics, which is, you know, how many units that really is. And then, you know, even hanging a footnote about Concord Meadows, the wait lists are so long for any affordable housing that we're not coming close to the need, whether our demographics are changing, whether we're getting bigger or smaller, or it really, Madison hasn't had affordable housing in its history very much. And so and it doesn't have to, but a footnote or something that tells people that we're talking about Madison. We're not just doing the general, if that helps.
Agreed.
So these numbers here, so like, if we look at these numbers, we have an increase of 4% and then an increase of 1%. So that's not really that compelling. I mean, that's not that significant, right? So are we basically saying that we have to focus on, we're not expecting that much of an increase. We have to focus on the needs that we currently have? I'm just trying to figure out what's the relevance, what's the takeaway from that paragraph?
Is
If you could just summarize in 2 sentences, what would you say?
sorry, I don't think that I know where you're at in the document.
I'm sorry.
specifically.
I'm in
Or,
the demographics, infrastructure, and other trends, which
Okay.
explains the current population and where it's going.
So if I may, what she's saying is, what relevance is it, what our population, let's say our population was saying exactly how it is, sort of what I was saying. We've never had enough affordable housing in Madison. So if we're going to put these graphs up front, that's going to show demographics, some of which probably are wrong just because things are changing so rapidly. What is the takeaway when, if we were to do this 10 years ago, we needed affordable housing in Madison? How are these graphs? It's not that so many people are moving into our town that we need to create affordable housing. It's that we don't have any affordable housing. And so this is maybe, and I don't mean to speak for you, Erin, but it just doesn't feel like the narrative of affordable housing. It just feels like some graphs.
right. Well, I think it's important to talk about what Madison's overall population is looking like. Because when people are reading the plan, they're going to be wondering that probably outright. Before we're even talking about affordable housing, they're going to be like, well, who cares? But what does Madison's population even look like? So I think that we do have to lay out those population projections, even if they're not saying oh my God, thousands and thousands of people are going to move into Madison in the next 10 or 20 years. They're still going to look at that and be like, okay, well, the population's not growing that much, but
Does it, I
our
guess,
age groups
would
are
it,
changing.
would it make more sense to folks if we just reverse the order of that presentation and just put the housing statistics up front and then pulled the demographic stuff after? I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's something. I would have to go back and look at Old Saybrook if we did it that way. But I think in a couple of towns, we sort of led off with housing and then moved into just the population trends and demographics after. Maybe that would be less confusing.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, that's what you did in other towns.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care. Talk soon.
We've done a bunch of different approaches.
Different, yeah. But, okay. Well, in my opinion, I think that might work better, because then people see, okay, this is what we have now. This is what's available now. And now let's tell you what's coming up in the future, what we're going to be needing. And so if they understand what we have now, then they can, and then they're brought to, this is what's happening, and this is why we need different housing for different groups. It might make more sense to them. It's easier to follow. What do you think, anybody else besides me?
I agree with you. I think it's a good idea for people to get a general outlook on what things are now. And then they'll be able to understand more of the demographics later. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. And it worked, and it worked in other towns. Other towns liked it and it worked there. So it probably would work here too.
I think that's a good idea also. Picking up on that, Sarah, I think it was you who mentioned maybe specifically mentioning current strains in town as far as wait lists and things like that. Is that you, Heather, that would have some of that information, or is it?
We could get you that today. I mean, we've got Concord Meadows, and that's basically it. So we can call up Elaine and say, what's your current wait list? Or, I mean, yeah, it's just, yeah.
Well, that's what I was.
And we've got a few other places, but that's 90 of like the 130. So that's pretty easy. Yeah.
Right. I think that's good. Then we could just get started adding that in.
Yeah. So I guess sometimes it seems like it's kind of like a data dump. There's a lot of good information in here, but like, I don't have a page number, so it's hard for me to tell you where I'm at, but you have under the Madison Trends, section 3, you go to the next page, and under the bar graph, there's a paragraph that talks about the senior population growing. And then there's a sentence at the end that says, this senior demographic can also potentially require more assisted or supportive living arrangements and might seek to live outside Madison. So it's like you present the data and then you put a statement that sort of like ties it together and says like, this is what it means. This is what the data means, which I think is good. Like, I think maybe if there was more of that, because like then the next section, it says, Madison has a unique situation where one of the largest and fastest growing age cohorts is the 55 to 19-year-old range. Okay, so what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, we'll definitely add in.
we're kind of like missing like I like how you did it in the previous paragraph. Like you presented the data and you said, this is why it's relevant. So I think maybe if you kind of follow that pattern, because otherwise the reader's kind of like, I don't know what to do with this data. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
So in an effort to maybe move this along a little bit, it sounds like some of the general feedback is maybe to look back at some other plans you've done, see how this compares. Maybe it's just as simple as the layout, what John's saying, and it's not, it would compare to, instead of sort of giving the graph and spitting out the data, sort of think about what the analysis is, and to add in some Madison points. And then maybe what would be helpful is that when you do that, which I would think wouldn't be that big a rewrite or change, you could present it to a smaller group of us who could maybe give concrete, detailed feedback, not change this word here and there, but like, so that we're not doing this all in a big group and we're moving it along, because I know this is just the narrative and the plan really does need to get written. Does that make sense as a timeline? And Rachel, you tell me like how long you think you would need until to get out a second draft with some of those things.
I could probably have that in the next week.
Okay, so are there a few people who would like to volunteer to just be, you can all get the document, but I think to have this many people give comments is overwhelming and it'll take too long on the narrative. Erin, can I draft you for that?
Me?
You,
Erin? Sure,
yeah,
sure. Yeah. Sometimes I have to catch myself. Which Erin are we talking about?
I'm just going by who I heard comments from this week.
Yes,
And so,
no, that's fine.
And Peter, I'm wondering if you might be interested in that.
Sure.
Is there anyone else who wants to do it who I haven't called out? I'm also thinking about who did the survey and try. Okay. And I'm happy to do that too. But if you find that 3 people is too much, you just let us know. And what we would do then is commit to getting you a quick turnaround with actual like written comments, like track changes, not changing words and wordsmithing, but more of the meat of it. And maybe this second draft will get us there. And so that'll be at least the beginning of our plan is coming together. So that's great. So thank you very much. Anything to add to that, John or Rachel, before I move on? No. Okay. I want to turn then to the goals that Erin passed out. And these are goals, correct me if I'm wrong, Erin, that you found just Connecticut, from Connecticut.
I'm not going to take the credit for that. That was John and Rachel who compiled a list of recommendations that they have found useful for other municipalities that they've worked with. So that was.
Give me John and Rachel. It came from Erin, and so I marked it as Erin.
No, it's her fault. It's her fault.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take credit for it. I'll take what I can get these days.
I honestly have to say I found this to be the single most helpful document we have seen in this group so far. And I really appreciate it, only in that, I think we're just desperate to know what are people putting in these plans. So, but I think it raised a lot of questions too. Did everyone get a chance to at least review it?
Which one is it? I'm confused at this point.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to ask. So we're going to really try. This is Heather or Erin just said. Erin has been good about sending out the agenda,
Yes.
and then any supporting documents. So it came in the most recent email from Erin. Is that correct, Erin? Okay. And it was attached. And so we're in sort of crunch period. If you hear me getting a little anxious, it's because I'm getting a little anxious. So this is February. And so I really need, if you're going to not get millions of emails from Erin or Heather, but when you get them, they're going to probably have attached documents.
Erin Mannix, we're getting these from. Okay, thank you. Yes.
And this document, just in case, is titled, it's a Word document that's titled Madison AHP recommendation list.
Oh, I don't remember seeing that.
So
Okay,
we'll
on
make sure.
Wednesday.
Maybe you're not on the list. Maybe you somehow got left off that list, Wendy. And if so, I really apologize, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen again. And then my hope and expectation is we're so very few people that we're going to get these documents. And even if we sort of get them a day or two before that, we have a chance to review them, else these meetings aren't going to be terribly helpful. So we'll make sure that you get on that list. And then John and Rachel, I don't know how, I'm going to leave it to you to present. I definitely have questions, but I didn't know how you wanted to do this.
For better or for worse, I think this was meant to be a little just bit of a data dump and like, here's what other towns have been working on. If there are any, we're happy to go through any of the ones that may seem intriguing and may need a little bit more explanation. Any given town that we've worked with, and you saw in the old Saybrook plan, for instance, they've picked 6 or 7 or 8 of them. It's no town is doing 25 things. This is sort of like, as best as we're able to determine, kind of the menu for Connecticut municipalities that we're working with, and it's perfectly legit for you guys to sort of say, I like these 5. I like, these sound interesting. Let's dig into them a little bit more. But if you want, we can dig through. Hopefully they're relatively self-explanatory, at least at the high level.
Is there a way, are these taken from towns that are similar to Madison, John? So like,
some are, sure. Some are, some are taken from old Saybrook and Essex. Some are taken from, Woodbury. I don't know if, it sounds about the same size, about the same income. They're taken from lots of our clients.
Okay.
So it's obviously not all of them are exactly applicable.
Well, that's the thing, is like, there could be some things that are adopted by New Haven, but it's like, well, we would never do that because it doesn't make sense. We're completely different makeup.
Well, so there's, for instance, if you look, just one quick example is number 14, which makes reference to transfer of development rights. That's applicable to communities that have, I think it's most applicable to communities that have sort of limited area of public sewer, where you can do areas of higher density. And, if say for instance, if Madison Center had sewer, and then you've got all of this area of North Madison that you want to try to protect, you could do an exchange of development rights to encourage density in an infrastructure area while simultaneously. And so this is a suggestion that we used in the town of Thompson and in the town of Avon, which both have a mix of open space and some infrastructure areas. So that would not necessarily be applicable, for instance.
So here's the thing. I don't know that this group understands each item. I certainly don't understand each item. And I do feel like there's some meat here that I'd like to get into. We have about a little less than 20 more minutes. I want to just say the other things on the agenda, which are sort of our next steps in the SCROG follow-up. Maybe we could do that for the next few minutes and turn back to this. And I wouldn't mind going down the list. Like there's a few no-brainers where we're going to do them. We know we're going to do them. And then there's other things where we could just skip. And then there's other things where I think we might have questions. So I feel like if we don't get through the whole list, that's fine. And we don't have to talk in detail about every item. But I do think there are some suggestions here, and there's some that we just don't even know what they are. So does that...
And not only what they are, but what are the implications? Like, I don't want to say something like, we're going to do this without knowing what that could also mean.
So Aaron, exactly. In fact, by some of them, what I wrote is this going to encourage affordable housing, or is it going to encourage some development of very expensive places that, so I agree. That's why I would like to talk about these. So let me, if I could just put a pause on this for 1 second, jump ahead and say this. The SCROG takeaway that we learned on January 14th was, Heather, is that recorded? Do you remember if that was recorded and we could send it out?
I wasn't able to attend the whole meeting, so I'm not entirely sure. I could try to find out for you.
Would you ask? I can't believe that Eugene didn't record it. So if you could ask, and then we could just send it out so people could see it again for what it's worth, and you could probably forward through some of it. But SCROG is then going to do community goals, which is why this next part is so relevant. And we picked February 23rd at 1 p.m. You're all invited and strongly encouraged to attend. I took everybody who responded to me. That was a date that everybody who responded to me could do, a date and time. If you're not able to, we are going to ask them to record and send it on. But if you could put that in your notebook or in your calendar. And then as far as next steps, David Fink did reach out to me. They are doing drive around towns. They are doing 13 towns in 2 days. I'm not sure why they're doing a tour like a rock band, but it's 13 towns in 2 days. So we get an hour with them. And I had looked at my calendar and selfishly said I could do Tuesday afternoon. They said 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Those are our options. And we can either drive in a car with them or we can go separately. It's a little unclear what we're doing. My understanding is we're showing them Madison and some areas, and then they're pointing things out to us. I'm willing to go in their car with a mask so I can actually hear some of their thoughts. I'm wondering if any of you want to attend and either do the drive-through or, so this would be, and I apologize for the very late notice. I got this yesterday, but Tuesday, 2 or 3 o'clock. This
On
coming
the 8th?
Tuesday.
The 8th?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, this coming Tuesday.
Oh.
Hopefully it's not going to snow on those 2 days.
yeah.
At 2 or 3 o'clock, you said?
That's what they said. Yep. Looks like it's going to be raining the whole time.
Oh, good.
Wants to
Where
come in
you're-
a car during COVID and drive around Madison for an hour in the rain with me.
Wear your galoshes.
How committed are you to affordable housing? We're going to know right here.
Where are you meeting these people? I mean, could we just kind of,
I have no idea. I have to be honest, but probably the center of town.
yeah.
I could do 3 o'clock. I can't do 2.
3 o'clock.
Mhm.
All right, and we don't all have to go, obviously, and we don't all have to go in the same car.
That's
But
what
you'd be missing the commentary if you went in your own car. David's input.
That's
Right.
I
right.
think he did say that he could do sort of a speakerphone situation and call the other car that was following,
Oh,
so that you all could talk.
Yeah.
I might have some walkie talkies like in my basement that I could donate to the cause.
All right, so I'm going to say 3 o'clock on Tuesday. It looks like Aaron might be with me. Aaron Duquesne,
I'm
not Aaron. Oh,
I'm
both Aaron.
available as well at 3 o'clock on
Okay.
Tuesday.
The Aarons
Okay.
will be there, and
Well,
maybe Wendy.
Maybe,
I mean,
yeah,
it's-
yeah. Okay.
I'm happy to drive a vehicle as well, if that's,
As am I. So yeah.
that's fine.
Okay. Okay. So thank you for that. I said I would get back to him right after this meeting. And so with that, maybe we could go back to the recommendations and go through them.
And Sarah, I don't know if hopefully this wouldn't attenuate the process too much, but what I might suggest is we could turn the recommendations into a little bit of a form that you guys could fill out, and so we could, kind of poll you guys on this is one I like, this is one I need a lot more information on, this is one I don't like, and we can start to narrow it as a group before we dig in on any specific ones.
I think John, I think like a ranked choice voting would be perfect. I mean, this is, and then next, I think we're not going to get even through one of these in 12 minutes. I mean, maybe we do ranked choice, and then we convene either kind of in an extra meeting or devote the entire meeting next time to that, because it seems to me this is going to form the foundation of whatever we put forth, and
Yeah.
it's important to ram through. So I think ranked choice, come back either next Friday or the following Friday as time is getting short, and really dig into what we all collectively think are the top X, and then dig deep and then go from there. But I think that's a great idea, John.
The only thing
Can
about
I
digging
also-
in and voting is that some of these, I honestly don't know what they are, Matt.
Right.
That's just the honest
Or
truth.
we
And
could do,
or I
Can I
understand what they
suggest-
are, but I don't know how they will.
right, so we can do ranked choice and then question marks. So if say a majority or
Right.
whatever number of us have questions about 1 or 2 or 3, then we dig deep into those as well. I don't know. I think it would somehow, we need to kind of streamline this in a way, because there's a lot there.
Can I also suggest that maybe, John, I don't know if it's possible, but for example, number 23, fund a municipal program. If you could provide like a site or, see something so that we could, because I mean, I admit it. I mean, I'm not a housing person,
Mhm.
but I'm willing to read it. And I don't want to come here and hold everything up and say, can you explain this? So if you could just provide some sites or, I think that could help expedite things as well. Or if there's specific recommendations about, I saw one, maybe Erin could pitch it, chime in on, this is where that might be in Madison. Like the area that this is talking about would be, you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, were those 2 separate recommendations?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking to Sarah's
So-
point about
right.
we might not know, like some of these are obvious, like number 2, just designate a municipal housing official. Okay, we probably know what that is, but like when it's referring to some other things, if you could provide maybe some places, references, so where we can look to educate ourselves a little bit more.
Although I have to say, I like the idea of you giving it to us and giving us space so we could write something. Because like first time home buyers, that's one where I looked at and I thought, okay, well, what's out there right now? And how much will a municipal grant or something help? And are they income restricted already? And because I know there's a lot from the government when you're a first time home buyer. So I guess what I'm saying is it raised each one raised a lot of questions. I like Matt's idea of voting. I don't like leaving something aside simply because I don't know what it is, or I don't know what's already available.
Sure it is.
And some of these things, I don't know if we already have certain things in Madison or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, we could set this up. I'm thinking, obviously, it's trying to convert this to a Survey Monkey thing. If we could ask the same question. We could have these same 25 in two different ways. One is a ranked choice, and one is I need more information about this, or I like it, I don't like it, I need more information about it. And we can look at these from a couple of different angles.
I mean, if that's what people want to do, that's fine. My preference is just like when I go into the voting booth to know who the candidates are before I vote for them. And so to rank them before I understand half of them, you're going to just get my top rankings of what I understand. So I wonder if there might be a little bit of explanation, because by the time we rank them, that's really what we're going to end up doing, right? So I don't know that we're in like a super rush to rank them before we understand them, but maybe that's
Or
just.
at least a link, as Aaron said, something that gives context.
Or the pros and cons, like here's, if you do this, here's, what could happen, or here's what's happened. But if you'd like to see our questions first, that's totally fair. I felt like this was really helpful, but I felt like I needed some time, and I don't even mind splitting up, 1 through 15 in one group or something like that, so maybe,
That's
I
not a
guess
bad idea.
Well,
Well, I mean, it would be actually, relatively easy. This is a little bit of a data dump. It's not super organized. What we could do is, here are zoning regulatory changes. Here are municipal, organizational actions. Here are financial commitments and that sort of thing.
that would be awesome, along with any sentence or two you could give to explain what it is, unless it's one of those super obvious, like, 1, 2, 3, you don't have to explain what a housing committee group is, or, but to the extent that it's begging for an explanation. And also to just say, Madison has this to some degree, but not, if they have it or not. I think that would help us. And then maybe our homework would be you're gonna give it to us in like a Survey Monkey where we fill out what we're asking. I'm not sure what we're doing next.
Yeah, well, neither am I.
Would it be helpful to have an initial survey that goes out that says, understand, more information needed, to help John pare down a little bit, of what he needs to prepare?
we could also just, all of us take this Word document, put in our questions, email it to John. He just looks at all of them.
And then come to my funeral after I kill myself.
Well, there's not that many of us. I mean, Sarah's is going to be very long, but there's not that many of us.
Or make a Google Doc.
I think-
Just a Google Doc so we can all see it in real time and edit and ask questions, which would be really helpful instead of.
Why don't we reorganize the list a little bit into categories first?
That's what he suggested, right? That's what John.
That's what.
Yeah.
Yep, and John had suggested, and we can get it back out to you, and if we have some little bit more information on some of those, we can share that with you without getting into huge explanations of each one. And then from there, accompany that with a survey of if you are looking for more information, if this is something of interest or not of interest. And that will give us some guidance to pare down.
Fine. And I will say the ones that we choose, I think that is worth talking through explanations on the ones that we choose so that we all feel like we really understand what we're saying we think will promote affordable housing. Yeah, so
So like I just Googled, what is it? The Housing Fund, Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And the Greenwich website has a great thing with question, what is the purpose of the Housing Trust Fund? With bullets. Why is it being proposed as a part plan to increase affordable housing stock? Bullets. So, I mean, I'll pass this along if people are interested, but it kind of, for those of us who aren't as familiar, just providing like a site like that where we can go look on our own. And then presumably whatever one of these that we decide on, we're going to have to provide some substantiation. We're going to have to say why we're choosing them. Right. So we're going to have to.
Yeah. Aaron, I agree with you. I just was Googling a few of these subjects and I am familiar with a lot of them, but if you Google them, you get all the information you want pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should split them up amongst ourselves and get the information that we all need on them rather than, 10 people each Googling each one, each 25, maybe once John and Rachel arrange it into categories, then we could split up those categories and present, and John and Rachel will be here to correct us or, add on information. And maybe that's a doable thing for next week where John won't, die.
I think that's reasonable. We can do. I would suggest we do two things. We'll reorganize it and push it out as a Word document, and then I think it's also maybe useful to put in a Survey Monkey, very simple. This is one I think I like. This is one I don't like. This is one I need more information on, and we'll just get that general sense so we can focus a little bit.
Okay.
And I promise mine won't be very, very long, Aaron.
I was kidding. You're very thorough. It's a good quality.
I know we need a plan. Sorry, I have one dog that went to the vet and the other dog who's in distress and one that doesn't care. So I'm sorry, you're just gonna hear whining, but it's not a baby, even though it sounds like it. Okay, so do we have what we're doing next with this? We have, John is rearranging. Sounds like Survey Monkey, Word. And I guess for those of us who've read it and really do have some questions, it probably wouldn't hurt to send them to John and Rachel now without, overwhelming them. So.
And by the way,
it was very helpful. I don't want to seem like we're very critical. It was helpful to put it all together. So.
Yes.
And I did say it was the single most helpful document. Oh, you found it, Wendy.
Oh,
Good.
it's I appreciate the compliment sandwich of it, but yeah.
Oh, really?
And everybody think of one compliment to send to John and Rachel in the chat right now. Right now.
Yeah. So I'll do that. And with apologies, I actually have to jump off to another meeting, but we'll get a revision out to you shortly.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And I think with that, we probably all have to jump off. It is 9:30 and I'm mindful of the time. So thank you all. It sounds like in the next few days, in order to make this as worthwhile as possible, we have some reading to do and some of our own research to do a little bit, both on the narrative and on these goals. But I think we will get there. Although we have a narrative subgroup, right? Yes. So
Oh yeah.
Okay. Anything else that I've missed before we end?
So I'm sorry, the narrative subgroup, we're just going to wait until we get something from John and then from Rachel. Okay. And then we'll act.
That's right. That's right. Okay, everyone. See some of you on Tuesday driving around Madison. Yeah.
Okay.